Welcome to the XFO Intelligence Podcast. You are listening to Episode 5 of our new series, The Artifacts of Wealth. We tend to imagine empires, built by conquering kings. Their legacies are carved into the stone of palaces and battlefields. But what if the most influential empire builder of the modern age wasn't a nation? What if it was a corporation? And what if its most devastating weapons weren't muskets and cannons, but things like, tea, cotton, and porcelain? This is the story of the English East India Company. It started with a royal charter back in 1600, just a speculative venture, really, to trade in Asian spices. Over the next 2.5 centuries, it metastasized. It became this hyper-powerful entity that had a private army larger than the British states. It ruled huge territories in India, and, it permanently re-engineered the global balance of power. Its conquest, though, it wasn't really a conquest of land, not primarily. It was a conquest of markets. And this was achieved through this just ruthless and masterful manipulation of material culture, the very objects that define our wealth, our status, our identity. The company's genius, I think, was understanding that to control what people consume, that's how you shape their world. It didn't just sell goods. No, it engineered desire. It manufactured dependency. It wove itself into the very fabric of entire civilizations. Our research, which we conducted with the deep augmented thinking method, it really reveals how this corporate alchemist, you could call it, transformed these humble artifacts into instruments of just unparalleled wealth and control. At the heart of the EIC strategy was something we're calling its arsenal of aspiration. Basically, a sophisticated classification of commodities, and each one was designed to penetrate markets on a really deep psychological level. First, the company engineered the chemistry of dependency. So, in the 17th century, tea, that was a rare luxury in England. Through some really aggressive marketing and promoting tea time as this essential social ritual, the EIC turned it into a daily necessity for everyone, every social class. Annual imports just exploded. From £100 to over 30 million, creating this torrent of silver flowing from Britain to China. This created a critical trade imbalance. The British had a national addiction, right? But the Chinese had little they wished to buy in return except for silver. The EIC's solution was a landmark in corporate depravity, the opium for tea triangle. The company began cultivating opium in its Indian territories and smuggling it into China, just methodically creating millions of addicts. The earnings from this illicit trade was then used to buy legitimate Chinese tea. So you have an addictive substance being funded by the violent imposition of another one. It completed a toxic and fantastically profitable loop. Next up in the arsenal was the fabric of revolution, Indian textiles. Before the industrial age, India was the world's textile workshop. Simple as that. The EIC flooded Europe with its breathtakingly beautiful and affordable calicos, chintzes, muslins. These lightweight, colorful, washable fabrics completely revolutionized European fashion and home decor. They created the first true mass consumer fad. But the company didn't just stop at trade. No, it began to control production. It was directing Indian artisans to weave specific patterns tailored just for European tastes. Then, once they'd appropriated the techniques, Britain used its own industrial mills to mass-produce cheap imitations. It then flooded the Indian market with these copies. It systematically dismantled the very artisan economy that had first enriched the company. It's a stark lesson in how the artifacts of wealth can be used to both create and Well, annihilate an industry. And finally, there were the symbols of status. A cup of tea, it's an experience, right? And the EIC made sure that experience was mediated through its artifacts. It imported just colossal quantities of Chinese porcelain. This stuff became an indispensable status symbol in aspiring European households. These objects were tangible proof of your refinement, of your global connection. It made the EIC not just a trader, but a purveyor of social capital. So how did a trading company become a sovereign power? Well, the artifacts were the weapons, but its corporate structure, that was the real innovation that wielded them. As a joint stock company, it could pool immense capital, and its royal charter gave it a trade monopoly and the unprecedented power to wage war, sign treaties, and govern territory. This fusion of a corporate profit motive with state-like sovereignty, that was the EIC's masterstroke. Profits from tea and textiles funded its private army. A pivotal victory, say the Battle of Plassey in 1757, that gave it the right to collect taxes in Bengal. It transformed it from a merchant into a ruler. The company had created a self-financing empire. Indian taxes paid for the armies that conquered more Indian territory, and that generated more revenue to buy more tea and opium for global markets. The whole artifact economy had become a machine for territorial conquest. The story of the East India Company, it's not a historical curiosity. It's a blueprint. We see its patterns today in tech giants that engineer addictive digital ecosystems just to harvest our data. We see it in global brands that control every single node of the supply chain, everything from design appropriation all the way to production. The EIC proved that ultimate corporate power doesn't lie in owning resources. It lies in controlling the channels of desire. The artifacts it trafficked in, the porcelain cup, the cotton shirt, the tea leaf, they were never just objects. They were the physical manifestations of a really revolutionary and frankly, terrifying idea that a corporation could remold the world by mastering what we want, how we live, and ultimately, who we are. If you found this analysis insightful, we encourage you to like and share this episode. And please subscribe to the XFO Intelligence Podcast for more episodes that deconstruct the architecture of wealth and power. Now, a question to leave you with. In our modern world, which artifact, be it physical or digital, holds the most power to shape economies and control populations? And who is its master?